The ACN podcast is made possible thanks to the generosity of our listeners and sponsors, including the Agile Alliance. As a nonprofit membership organization, the Agile Alliance is an excellent resource to help you along your Agile journey. To learn more about the Agile Alliance and our other sponsors, as well as how you can become a sponsor or supporter of our show, please visit acnpodcast.org for more information. And thank you for your support. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Agile Community Network. We've been bringing this show together as a podcast and live event for now 103 episodes. I'm very proud of the accomplishment of us getting together on a monthly basis and talking about all things Agile. The great thing about this group is that we bring together people who've been doing Agile for a long period of time in different disciplines, from anywhere from consulting to people who are embedded and working within teams, people who are adjacent to Agile, meaning they might be working with teams that are Agile and they're looking to explore and get a deeper understanding of what Agile is to those groups. We encircle this body of knowledge with all of us. The way that you participate in this conversation is that you simply raise your hand, and I'll go through those rules in a second. In this session, it's not just us, the people who are here every month, or the panelists or the co-hosts. We want to hear the perspective of the entire group. With that, I just want to call out really quick that we do have sponsors to this show, Agile Alliance, and I do want to call them out because if you are attending Agile 2025, it starts next week. Just a show of hands, how many people here are going to be at next week's event? Just go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, we got a few people there. If you are attending next week, please go ahead and I think Diana is going to be there, and she raised her hand as well. Go visit her. One of the things that I've always been impressed with her, as well as most of the people that go to that event, is don't be afraid to talk to the speakers. Don't be afraid to talk to people in the hallways. It's about networking. There's a lot of great stuff going on there. It looks like they have a really nice schedule. It's only going to be 3 days this year, and I think you can also just go for a day if you want to. Spend the time, interact with the people there, and bring back knowledge. Hopefully we can debrief on next month's episode. I'd love to hear if you found something new. Also, Cicada, Organizational Agility, DianaLarson.com, Engine for Change, and New Agility are our sponsors. New Agility is the producer of the show, and that happens to be a place where if you want to, you can go to New Agility or through acnpodcast.org, and you can go and join there. We're trying to get communities going. We have other events that take place. Please go up there, show your support, and anything that you guys can do for us to keep those podcast numbers up high. Get the likes and the love messages on any of the podcast services. We greatly appreciate that. We're joined almost every month by Shauna, Diana, Sheila Eckhart, Sheila McGrath, April Mills, as well as Hendrik. This week, unfortunately, Shauna will not be with us, as well as Hendrik and Sheila Eckhart. They have day jobs, so I understand they're not able to attend. But we have everyone else here, so let's make sure to get that conversation going. And the way that the conversation works is simple. The goal is to hear all the perspectives of the community. We want to hear those perspectives as well, because one of the cool things about this community is that the perspectives anyone brings to this, if you're new to it or you've been doing it a while or you've had a bad situation and you want to just kind of decompress from that, we want to hear those things. We do ask that if you are not to sell anything. I don't mind if you just wrote a book, please plug your book. If you wrote it, be proud of that. But, don't go into a long sales pitch. We want to be respectful to the other people here. We want to give them a time to be able to share their thoughts and ideas. This topic comes, and I apologize for when I posted this as your boss incompetent. That was a little inflammatory. It wasn't meant to be inflammatory, but some people might call that out and say, well, wait a minute, maybe my boss does seem to be incompetent. But really, if you think of the perspective that I'm looking to understand here, I think we've all been in this situation before where your boss doesn't understand what you do. And I could tell you, being in, early days of Agile, back when I first started, I was learning my own stuff. And then when we got intermediate and grew into a big community of practice, there was one thing that was really clear. In my case, I knew my boss didn't understand what I did. They didn't understand what coaching was. They didn't understand what we do when we're going off to launch a team or improve a team or all of the different process improvements that we were doing. And as you know, there's an inherent risk when your boss doesn't know what you do, or they are themselves trained in the stuff that you do. They represent us to the rest of management, including in budget cycles. I am concerned if the fact that the person, that is above me or the person who's actually representing me may not be doing that at a level that is going to keep my group alive or keep our team going. If you look at this, one of the things I look at it from this perspective is one, don't immediately think that that person might be incompetent. Give the benefit of the doubt. They got the job for some reason. Be proactive on your communication. And also, I found that setting up sessions to educate your boss about what you do is incredibly important. It is very important. Also, if you think about building those trust and specifically establishing boundaries, I don't think a lot of people have a lot of discussion with, what is within the scope of what you do and what do you need from your boss? What do you need from them from time to time? Meaning that you want that space, you want that empowerment. I think it's really important to establish those boundaries where you can say what it is that you need. And I could tell you, being a boss for a number of years, being in middle management, the question of how can I help is a very important one. And I learned this from my lean training, which is trust people to do their jobs. That's why they have their jobs. And then 2, when necessary, be available to help them, remove roadblocks. And again, reaching out and understanding what they actually do for the team. How do they spend their day? Sometimes as a manager, I remember being in meetings all the time. I mean, literally from morning to the time that most people went home, I would be in a meeting doing some aspect of what was necessary to coordinate across multiple teams, product development, budget meetings, future planning, strategic long-range planning, all those things. Seek to understand what your boss does. Lastly, seek support if you find that you're stuck in a situation that is actually bad. I think a lot of people stick with a job for too long and don't see what their path is, other than to potentially leave the company. And I can tell you, most companies do not want to lose quality people. So if you need help, who do you reach to? What's that support network look like? Do that in a professional manner. In bad situations, sometimes it brings out bad behaviors in us. I think what it means is for us to be able to look at and see how we remain professional in these situations. How do we take deep breaths and everything else in order to move forward? So I'm going to stop my dialogue there and get straight to the questions. Now, the questions are, what is your approach when your boss doesn't know what you do? And also, what do you do if they don't seem to be qualified for their job? Second question to that is, what actions do you take specifically to improve the situation that you're in? And that's kind of redundant to the first question, but I just wanted to really drill down to make sure that we touch on that. I want to hear those opinions. And lastly, as I was talking to some software developers yesterday, this question came up several times with other people in the Agile space. Should your boss be able to do your job when you're not available? Is that part of their role, at least in the case of the software engineers I was talking to, as well as the Agilists? They really believed that their boss should be able to step in and do their work if necessary. Sheila McGrath, do you want to take a first stab at this?
I'm trying to think where to start. I have so many thoughts on this subject. If they appear to be incompetent, is it because you're looking for them to know the latest technology, but they've been in a management role long enough that they may know the thing that was written in, but they don't necessarily know the new thing? I have a little issue with people who think that a manager should be able to step in and be a developer, even if they have a development background. I know I've been places where when I was managing a team, I denied all knowledge of things that I actually knew because I knew that they'd just try to get me to do their work for them. until I couldn't find anybody who could do it. Then I suddenly remembered how to do it. And I forgot again the next day. And it's again denied all knowledge, because otherwise they would be lazy in their work. Not all of them, but enough that it was a real concern. Another aspect is, are we talking about specifically Agile or in general? Do you understand the business? Do they understand the business? What aspect of the business is it confined to what's done in one division? And how are the divisions divided? Sometimes they're siloed by product, and sometimes finance is one, and accounting is another, and depending on the nature of the work, there may be people doing things with hardware. I've worked in organizations where there was a network to be maintained, and the network was a separate division, an engineering division. So it isn't really realistic to expect that everyone is going to know everything. And even if you did, you can't do it all. And that's not an effective team. So you really need to rely on some people having the latest expertise on what they do. And you may not understand every nuance of it. And why should you? But there are probably things you understand that they don't. Now, when you're talking in an organization, if you're talking specifically about Agile, are we talking at a single team level? Are we talking at a release train level? Are we talking at the enterprise level? Are we talking about business agility? Because the questions and the answers are going to be totally different depending on the level we're talking about. So if you're talking about a direct manager of an individual team or a group of teams that are part of a release train, it may be realistic for them to know certain things. It may not be realistic if we're talking at the enterprise level, where it was new product development. We were looking at, what does customer care need? What do the kiosks need to look like where we're going to be in a store and selling the product? There were a lot of different moving parts that people had to consider. And there was absolutely no reason for everyone to have expertise on everything. So are expectations of competence realistic in that respect?
I like where you're going with that. The one thing in particular, this concept of how do we learn to respect others, respect what they do, respect their job. And then the other aspect of, what is it they bring to the party? Someone does bring the paper cups and other people bring the main entrees. I think specifically in this case, if you respect your boss and you know what they do, let's get really specific on this. You're looking directly at that person you're reporting to. What actions do you take to make a situation like we've described better?
First, you have to define what the real underlying problem is. You have to figure out why they don't understand and why they're being resistant. I've had people that were direct managers or sponsors of projects that were extremely resistant because they didn't really understand, but they didn't want to admit that they didn't understand. So instead of looking at it as one big monolith, what do they call that? Drinking from the fire hose, doesn't really work very well for anybody. So instead, you how do you eat an elephant? One spoon at a time. Mm-hmm. So you only deal with what you need to deal with right now. Is what they need high-level objectives, or is what they need to understand what needs to be accomplished for whatever needs to be delivered first? And you focus on that.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that opinion. Scott, what do you have on this?
I found Sheila's comments interesting. I've worked with a lot of bosses, and especially in this agile world and transformations, they're not really sure what their role is. They're not sure what agile is or Scrum. The best environments I've worked in are when my boss has wanted to learn. And as Sheila mentioned, there's lots of managers, and I've worked for plenty, that they're afraid to admit that they don't know something. They don't know something, which means it stifles their learning in those opportunities. What I try to do, regardless of the situation, is have lots of conversations. To Sheila's point, I don't try to talk about Agile, everything about it. What I try to do is take things that are affecting teams and write a blog post about a particular thing, like relative estimation versus hour estimation, or what does it mean to be Agile versus do Agile? And then it gives perspectives on different things, which you can then have conversations with, not just because it's not just your boss, it's also everybody around you that is they're going through the same thing. They're trying to learn, what is Agile? What does it mean to them? What does it mean to the team? How do I function in this environment? How has my role changed? And we're all going through that to take these things down and have small conversations about different things as they're coming up and relevant to people and teams you're working with. I've found in a lot of cases, people seem to be more receptive to that than to sit there and try to explain everything to them all at once.
I like that perspective. And I also like the fact that you said that you created a blog post. Asynchronous communication to the rest of the team. I think it was Scott Hanselman one time said at an event that I was at, and he was speaking, and he talked about the conservation of keystrokes. He said that you only have so many letters you can type in your lifetime, so conserve it and amplify it out. Curious, do you have an internal blog system for your company? And do you know if someone reads it or not?
So I post everything on Teams. In the discussion channel, we have a Teams page, and I post things there. And I think some people read it that I don't know read it because they don't respond. Others do read it and respond. I also run a Scrum Masters community of practice where we bring up a lot of these topics and review it with 20 to 30 Scrum Masters across our enterprise. Every other week, I talk to my teams about the stuff that's in these blog posts because, again, it's the teams that I work with. It's, I don't go in there and start telling them what their problems are. I let the data show the team what their problems are. And as those problems are presented, I might then write a blog post about it to provide some detail, because right now I'm acting as a contractor and I want to leave them some artifacts so that, a year from now, if I'm not there, they're like, ooh, what did he say about, relative estimation? I forgot. Well, the blog post is out there. Go read it. Mm-hmm. Right. So trying to tie just-in-time information to the issues that teams are seeing at the time.
I love that. I love the perspective you're bringing to it, and I like how you're educating people. Diana, how are you?
I'm well. Back in the USA after a long trip abroad. Yeah.
Is that a song? No, that's Back in the USA.
Yeah.
It's a totally different one.
When I saw this topic, I've been doing in a lot of the talks that I've been giving lately and different consulting engagements that I've been doing lately, I've been looking a lot at the differences in work. Manual labor, kind of the idea that all work was manual labor gave pride of place to knowledge workers. And now I feel like we're moving into a world of learning workers. I found this great quote by Marshall Goldsmith about what is a knowledge worker. And he said, knowledge workers are people who know more about what they are doing than their managers do. I think the idea of moving from knowledge work to learning work makes that even more challenging. How does a manager or a leader in an organization do the work that's in front of them, looking at the horizon that is presented to them, and keep up with all the learning that team members may be doing? I think it's a huge challenge. Expect the boss to step in and do your job. How would it be possible in today's world for them to have kept up? Even if they were the rock star senior engineer who got promoted into management, which seems to happen, where they found their level of incompetence, it's a tricky situation. And I think like with the discussion about technical agile coaches and non-technical agile coaches related to this, it's important for the leader, the boss, to understand the nature of the work we're doing and support their people, but not necessarily be able to do the work. Because I think today that's an unrealistic expectation. And it's partly why Tricia and I wrote Lead Without Blame. Whether you're blaming the managers or the managers are blaming the employees, it's not a useful activity. It doesn't move us toward the results that we're looking for and the outcomes that we want. My boss is particularly hard to get along with because my boss is me. But I do interact with clients who, for the moment, I am trying to satisfy the requests they've made of me. I guess that puts them in a quasi-bossish role, although I'm more able to walk away from that situation than a lot of people are. But I think the more there's mutual understanding, leaders and managers need to understand the kind of work that the people they are supporting are doing. What are some of the sticky bits and where are their impediments and how does that work? But also it can be useful if on the employee side, an action to take to improve the situation is understand what additional responsibilities your manager, leader, boss has. And what are they trying to juggle? So that when you take a request to them, you can do that understanding the context that you're delivering that request in. I think it's a very difficult challenge right now because of the way particular software development, but any kind of creative work, the speed at which things are changing, the technologies are changing, the languages, all the things that are coming online. It's hard for the development team to keep up, let alone for the boss who has a whole bunch of other things on their shoulders. I think it's tough. And I think that the real way to improve the situation is make sure lines of communication are open. And if you get a message from the boss that they are not interested in having the lines of communication be open, then maybe it's time to look elsewhere.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious from the management perspective, really quick. Do you think that some of this could stem from, as I was talking with some of the software developers, a clear understanding of what my boss does, but I think it also got into the distance that the boss was from the team. Is the boss a member of the team?
No.
They have a distance from that team. And so I guess my question for you in management, when you establish those roles and you work for somebody, where do you draw the line about, what distance does the manager have from the team? I guess.
For me, it would be, do they call themselves or do I call them the boss? Which immediately sets them apart.
I hated to be called the boss, by the way.
Well, and from my observation, you behaved more like a member of the team.
Yeah, actually, I
But
did.
you had responsibilities that the other members of the teams didn't have as well.
Right. That's very true. So was that a mistake?
Was what a mistake?
Behaving that way as the person managing the group. Is that a mistake, do you think?
No, not
Okay.
at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was very clear that I have these roles. This is what I do on a daily basis. Thank you for your perspective. Everyone, read that book. It's really good. I'll do the book plug for you.
Hey,
How's it going?
doing good, thanks. It's a very interesting topic. It's very related to what I do right now with AI and management. One thing, maybe it's because of the background I came from when I was doing graduate school. One thing they were teaching us was the advisor which was the boss at the time, is not supposed to, you need to know much better than your advisor. Because if your advisor knows as much as you, they do their PhD thesis. So I was trained to always know better than my boss in the thing that I do. They are great in orchestration and teaching me how facilitate what I'm doing. But I don't think the managers are supposed to be the definition of qualifying for the job. Their job is orchestration. Their job is not doing what I do. If they do what I do, they are individual contributor. They are not managers. So with me, with that thinking, for the last 15 years that I've been working in industry in different sense, I was software engineer, technical lead. I was an agile coach. Then I became a VP at a company. At all those positions, I tried to keep it in a way that, and people who work with me, that I don't know as much as people working there. I can do their job, maybe half pay, but they are much more qualified. They are facilitating. Or if I'm a manager, I'm orchestrating the work they do and I'm facilitating that they do their job the best. I'm not qualified always to do what they do. I can probably pull it off, but not as fast as they can. So that has been the relationship I have always been imagining as manager and reportee. But the boss is a little bit different thing. I think the boss can be just the person who pays. And that person is not even, a lot of times, not related to the actual work being done. That person is just having interest in it. So that has been my mindset. It might be wrong in situations, but cross-functional teams, all the way from individual contributor to leadership, makes it, if your boss knows what you do and can do it, why they hire you. So
that's a good perspective. And I like when you said orchestration. I kind of think of a real orchestra. I don't believe that the conductor who gets up there might not know how to play a trombone, but they know to choose the trombone when they need to in order to get a good sound out. So I appreciate that. Lots of hands going up. I love this.
Hi, Ray.
Hi.
So my thing with this, when a business leader doesn't understand, I don't see that as much of a problem. Often it acts as a protective layer. In a lot of organizations, they want the appearance of agility. They want that faster delivery. They want the collaboration. They want those views without actually embracing what Agile is rooted in. They don't want what Agile actually does at the end of the day. When they see Agile as that human-centric, value-driven force towards human connection, it's a disruptive force to the status quo. They'll resist it. They want their command and control culture. They really are not looking for actual development. When my manager doesn't understand, that's a good thing. It lets me practice what I need and delivers value within the team and organization without them coming in and saying, you're giving too much autonomy. In a perfect world, I would want an organization to understand everything I do, understand what values actually mean, treat people fairly. But when they don't, it allows me to act invisibly and I'll do what the teams need. So I don't think that this is really a problem. I think this is a magical thing that sort of happens.
Interesting. So question on that, if that does create the distance where the boss isn't trying to get involved in every decision or second guess you, what do you find as they are representing you or evaluating you? Do they have the capability of evaluating you? How do you handle that?
It really depends on how they're doing that evaluation. Most of the time, if they are completely oblivious to what Agile actually means, they're looking at, are you making the line go up? Are you hitting your schedule? These are things that I see as pieces that add on to things. That's not what my job is. My job is not to say the line goes up no matter the cost to the organization. It's to keep it at a sustainable pace in a way that we can actually work without burning out. If they just think I'm doing things that are exploitative to the people who are working with me, then they're going and I'm getting the results. That's great. If they actually know, I'm saying, team, you want to go off on Friday to get a lunch? Go do that. We'll make up that time later. Sometimes I've had management say, why aren't you working? That's 3 hours that you could have been delivering value without actually seeing that those 3 hours are a value. Does that make sense?
It does. No. It does make perfect sense. As long as the distance is there, meaning that the results are coming in You're getting a sustainable pace. You might have to reset management from time to time. I've had to reset management to say that the goal isn't to just get everything shipped by a particular date. We want people to be in it for the long run. It's amazing when you give people some slack, some amazing stuff comes out. And I think you have to educate your management on what were those good things that came out. Not specifically about what you did, but what specifically was the outcome of giving those days. I appreciate your opinion on this. I think that's great stuff. Great points. I made the comment that the orchestra leader doesn't know how to play all the instruments. And Dennis called me out and said, hey, he does or she does. If they do, great. But I can probably guess, and Dennis, you're welcome to raise your hand and add to this comment. I bet they don't play it as well as a professional trombonist. They know how to play it, but they're not really proficient or world class at it. Maybe that's going too much into it. Oh, Dennis, did you raise your hand? Hey, Dennis. How's it going?
You're exactly right. Although there are cases of conductors who are world-class pianists, right? Daniel Barenboim, for instance. I actually saw a performance where he was doing a piano concerto, playing the piano solo, and he was conducting the orchestra at the same time. They turned the piano around so that all the orchestra people could see him.
And wow.
Yeah. And I think it's a little pushy. But then I heard him play and I said, okay, we'll let him do it. Okay. But you're right. Yeah, your conductor may not be a world-class trombonist or percussionist, but they know enough about music and they're proficient at, usually fairly proficient at some instrument. My community band conductor, he's a pretty good clarinetist. When he talks to the clarinets, he's got authority. When he talks to me, I play oboe. It's your judgment on this one. So the same thing goes for technical work, right? You will have a manager who has strong technical proficiency in some programming language, framework, technology. And they have to know when to be humble and say, I'll take your word for it this time.
I fully agree with that. I used to work for a gentleman who held the patent on CMOS technology. When working on semiconductors, he was a humble guy. He knew that the technology had moved on, but he occasionally would be able to give some help. Thank you for that. Jorg, your hand went up. What's up?
Yep, I just wanted to contribute a bit of perspective because I'm actually lots of my professional life been in exactly that management role. So the boss you're talking about has me to a lot of people. Always been in the middle. So I had a boss and I was a boss. That maybe gives a bit of additional perspective. I don't care very much if my boss doesn't really understand, but if he doesn't care for what I'm doing, then I have a problem. Because if he doesn't care, I can't get help. I can't explain to him what really matters to him, to the company, and to the results. Then we are in a fix. I'm either not really needed, or even my team is not really needed, or we definitely lose so much communication that it will be really painful to compensate. First of all, I try to make them interested and curious by giving them something to look at, to show what I'm doing. The very best thing is if my people walk across the aisle smiling. If you have a different mindset that you can create from caring for your people, that normally gets contagious and people want to know how you do it. Easy thing, doesn't work always. And that's the same thing. I've been in a position where I was boss to somebody and I wasn't allowed to know what they were doing because they had all the financial data. So I couldn't even do their job. But I could help her make sure when there was a big event ongoing that there was a substitution in place, that everybody knew to get things done before, and just to be there to talk when she was afraid of flying and make sure she wasn't too afraid of going to the US for the business trip. All that things matter. And in the first company I was working on, the boss was always the guy who helped you. That was the definition of boss. There was no other hierarchy than somebody above you is there to help you because they have the farther reach. That is what matters to me a lot. I try to ask for help to get them interested as well. Because if I can say, this is what you're contributing and this will be the overall result, and that again creates engagement. For myself, to understand what the team is doing, I'm just present. Am I part of the team? Yes and no. I'm a special part of the team, and I'm part of a lot of teams depending on how the organization is. And if I'm just running one team, 5 teams, a big organization, but I make it a point to be as available as possible because our minds work associatively. If they see me, they see, I have a question that's general for that site, so I need to get it clarified. Otherwise, they would take it home and say, I still don't know. Nobody tells me the strategy. And I don't even know that they're interested. Getting that discussion going is definitely one of the improvement things I find very, very helpful. It takes time. And that is why there is just no technical work at a certain leadership level. I had the benefit of having a very good trainer in the beginning who taught transition engineer to management. He said, if you want to go to management, let go of competence. You just can't do it both in the same time. And don't even try, because otherwise your people will think you're smarter, but you're actually much more stupid. In the end, they will all just be average or less. So just let go and accept that they can teach you something. I'm still curious. I'm still learning how the new programming languages and stuff work from my team. They even have the satisfaction to tell me that there's new things I don't know about. And I have the satisfaction of still learning. One thing I absolutely must do, I must make sure their job gets done when they are not there. There's nothing worse than you being on sick leave or having a family problem and you know all the work is piling up and nobody cares. That is just so bad. So when something happens, I know how to get things done outside of the team or get things to be actively not done, which is as good. But that is the main support, not picking up and working. What happens if 3 people are not there? I'm working for 3 people? No way. So it just doesn't work. And the people who just come from the technical side most often haven't seen the benefits. And that is what I'm doing as well. I'm talking about my other commitments and the things I'm doing. If I'm helping the team going to a certain meeting and getting buy-in for a budget, I'll try to explain what happens, what the dynamics are. And at a certain point, 50, 60% of my day job, I get somebody volunteering to do it. And then I can raise them up, move another level, and get more effective and supportive. And the team is just stronger. And in that role, that's what I would expect from a Scrum Master as well. So you need the standing in the organization to make it happen. That's why the leaders must do it. Let them do the work they can do and do something else. If you can't find something else, then either your limit of your competence and the organization is maybe too stiff or whatever, but worth thinking about what that means.
There was a comment that just went past the chat line. I just want to make sure everyone understands that in facilitating this conversation, a lot of hands go up sometimes, and I do my best to get to people as soon as their hand goes up. We've got a number of people who, intermixing panelists with people who call in because I want to hear everyone's perspective. And I'm sorry if somebody gets on their hand up for a long period of time. There is no favoritism going on. Basically, I'm doing my best to facilitate. So I apologize if anyone felt disenfranchised because of the way that I was picking people. Lisa, I know that you just put a comment up there. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? You mind if I bring you into the conversation? Lisa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
So it's really a question. I'm not sure how much I want to expand on it. It's a clear question.
Go ahead and say your question so we can get...
What should be done if, as an Agile coach, you observe a lack of empathy from your boss?
Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, show him a bit of compassion. Lack of empathy can have a lot of reasons, like stress, overload. A lot of bosses are not trained correctly to say, this is not the moment for the discussion. And that is a valuable skill that I learned much too late to really use. And then it just comes across as not caring sometimes. Be sure what you really expect, what the condition is, and assume there are maybe 35 people that actually have a personal conversation need every second day. You can't be always attentive. So make them understand how you feel. or why something is important to you, and hope that they show some empathy. Otherwise, you might have a technical boss who is better at your job than you are. It evolves around, are you in the right place or a very bad place? I've met on that point a lot of people who just for the higher salary went for the management position and got into a really deep hole. So sometimes maybe pulling them out and offering a hand might be good. And sometimes they might not notice how you feel.
I had a boss one time tell me, don't tell me about the labor pains, show me the baby. And I considered that to be an incredible lack of empathy for the work that was being done. So how do you approach it? You got to raise your voice and say, we really need you to understand this a little bit better. And maybe that's a little bit too simplistic. I don't know, but I think that's required.
Most of the time, make the conversation private. Don't burst out in a meeting.
I learned that later in life. Oh, here we go. Tehran? Am I getting that correctly?
Hey.
Hey.
Yes, that's pretty close. It's pronounced Tehran.
Tehran, welcome.
Thank you. Long-time listener, first time saying something.
Love it.
I'll give my perspective on the young lady's question or comment. I am an IT project manager, and my role in the beginning was to lead an agile implementation for several teams. I feel your pain. There was a point where I went to the director and I said, hey, what we're doing isn't working. And I felt that he wasn't empathizing into my needs in terms of my passion for getting the job done, wanting to see that improvement. And we had this conversation in private, which ultimately lasted about 2.5 hours, which I was very grateful for. What I got out of it was, from my perspective, I have a goal for the entire team or the shop. And you may have all these issues be in your way. A persons, any reason, like whatever you name. So what I've learned to do is just dangle the carrot in front of me and everyone else. I no longer talk about long-term, oh, this would be great. No, I just do the smallest little thing that makes me happy to achieve a win. And that may be something nobody notices, and that's totally fair. But as long as you are aware of it and keeping your spirits in line, then it's fine. And if you decide to play that long game, you will eventually get your gold at the end of the rainbow, as they say, but it may take some time. I totally feel your frustration because the people you report to, you don't know how the wheels work. That's my comment.
Oh, thank you for your perspective. I deeply appreciate it. We are at the top of the hour. Amazing how the hour just skips on by. We're in the middle of our summer. Some people are in the middle of their winter. I just want to thank everyone for the conversation today. Really good. I want to remind everyone, if you're going to the Agile conference next week, please go look up Diana Larson. She's going to be there. She's great to sit down and talk with. She won't mind if you buy her coffee or whatever you need to. I really appreciate my co-hosts. I love speaking with you guys once a month. I wish we should talk more. That would be great. Some of the things that are also coming up, if you go up to acnpodcast.org, they haven't been rolled out. It's been a difficult month for me. There's been all sorts of little personal things come up, including my dog passed away yesterday. I promised last month that we would have some things coming off in July, but there will be some things coming up in August. So stay tuned by going to acnpodcast.org. Please tell your friends about the podcast. We want to get those numbers up. They're doing well. We're getting lots of replays, but still hit the likes and all that type of stuff. It helps the algorithms to promote the show as well. And I really appreciate everything. Our next live event is going to be on August 22nd. And until that time, everyone, have a great month. The ACN podcast is for educational and informative use only. If you'd like to know more about the ACN community, please come up to acnpodcast.org and support our show.